our great country. And in order for that to be successful, voices are heard through multiple sources. One way is what we are doing right here today, is you get to express your voice in support of our Congressman, Nathaniel Moran. You can applaud on that one. And welcome to his re-election kickoff. You're also going to have another chance for your voice to be heard through our Congressman by sending him back to Washington, D.C. to represent us. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Orr, my clap meter. Thank you.
I wish I had the sign.
On many occasions, you hear someone introduce another by saying, begin quote, my good friend, end quote. And you could tell it's not genuine. But I know without question, almost everyone here today can say that genuinely about Nathaniel, that he is our friend. Not only is he our friend, he's our neighbor, our fellow church member, a person we see at the grocery stores, someone we see at Meet the Teacher Night. We're grateful for what today represents, and particularly grateful that he chose us, Smith County, for the 10 a.m. slot today, not the 1 p.m., and thank God not the 4 p.m. slot. So we appreciate you taking care of the home team. I'm going to introduce someone who's not a stranger to you, who's going to introduce the Congressman. And he is one of the most decent individuals that I've ever met in my entire life. He served on our city council, the Net RMA board, as a county commissioner, and countless other boards to help our community. And yet he still does get a nervous twitch when someone says the words jail bond. Please welcome Jeff Orr.
Good morning. It's usually a bad idea to give a recovering politician a mic, but I'll try to make this very brief. Hey, all of us know Congressman Nathaniel Moran. We've been friends with them and their family now for a long time. I had the good fortune of serving with him on the Commissioner's Court. As you know, he stepped up at a time that we needed a county judge. I had dozens of people call my office wanting to be judge, and I wanted Nathaniel to be judge, but he never called the office. I had to reach out to him over a period of months to get him to consider that. That tells you a lot about the person and their commitment to the community. But you know those things. So I'm going to hit a couple of highlights and then move it on over to him. But you may not know this, but he's one of the few freshman congressmen that's appointed to 3 committees. Almost unheard of. In fact, I went through a bunch of them last night and couldn't find any more. He serves on the Judiciary Committee. We can only imagine how important that's going to be over the next couple of years. The Foreign Affairs, you think that doesn't make a difference when you're dealing with Xi and Putin and dictators now that are president for life? And of course, education and workforce. There's probably nothing that has surrendered more of our community and our society than the overtaking of our education system. So if we can claw that back and put that back in the hands of parents and local communities, the better off we'll be. If you're my age, you'll remember Paul Harvey. Does anybody remember Paul Harvey? And the rest of the story. I used to love those. I don't know why at that age, but last night, not before last, I was doing a little research on Moran and things I might not know, but I ran upon their ancient family crest. Now, my war family crest probably means you don't get along very well with other people. But Moran actually, lucet inditembris in Latin, and in English that means they shine in the darkness. And I thought, how cool is that? They shine in the darkness. Because let me tell you, there's a lot of darkness in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of darkness in our society, and we need people that shine in the darkness. Judge Moran and now Congressman Moran and I've had many, many conversations about the fundamental calling of citizens who want to serve in the public arena. He understands that the rights and privileges that we surrender today are rights and privileges our grandchildren will never know. If we don't hold on to them with everything we can right now, we won't have them very long. Most of you and myself, we're a lot more concerned about a bloated, rotted federal government than we are climate change. We have a federal news media now that is basically the arm of the Democratic Party. We see it. We see the corruption. And I think that that you can start to hear the water going out of the swamp. But let me tell you something about swamp animals. They don't want to leave. They don't want to leave. They don't say, hey, well, we're good. We're just going to turn it over to these other people. They'll do anything they can to stay in power. So we've got to have strong congressional leaders that are grounded in the principles that made America great. If you look at Congressman Moran's congressional webpage, at the very end of it, you're going to find something that's very telling. And it lets you know that he knows who holds the future of America. It closes with Matthew 22, 36 through 40. Matthew 37 says, love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And let me tell you something. That's who you want to send to Washington, D.C. Congressman?
Thank you, Jeff Orr, for that warm introduction, and thank you to each one of you for being here today. Most importantly, to my wife, Keena, who's by my side, and thank her for being here today. I'm going to let her stand in the shade.
Smart.
We just celebrated 24 years of marriage, and with our 4 kids together, we're dedicated to another 2 years in Congress, and thankful to have had the time that you've given us already to serve you. It is simply a beautiful day here in East Texas, but it is hot, and I promise I won't keep you long. It's a great day in America, too, because you know what? Freedom still reigns supreme in America, and hope springs eternal, no question about it. Hope for a nation that's safe, an economy that's strong and prosperous, a life that is peaceful, and a government that's dedicated to the preservation of individual liberty. That's what we want here in East Texas. That's what we know is the real value in government. Individual liberty. Thanks to David Stein for that warm welcome and that prayer this morning. Thank you, David, and we are friends. And everybody here, I consider you to be a good friend because this is my home. This is where I grew up. And I'm so thankful to be able to represent those that I know best and love the most. Thanks to Jeff Orr for those kind words of service. And there are so many people here in the audience of character and service to their community. I'd love to recognize every one of you, but I do appreciate the time that you've been out here today. I want to call out a couple people in particular. Our great state senator, Brian Hughes. Thank you for being here today. Representative Cole Hefner, where are you at? You're back here as well. Thank you for taking the time this morning. Lots of county officials. County Judge Neil Franklin, thanks, County Judge, for being here today. A lot of other county officials here today and state officials. I just am so thankful that each one of you would take the time to be here. And then in particular, my family here, my brother Patrick, my nephews, nieces, his wife Jane are here today to support this re-election as well. And we are grateful. We are grateful to have this opportunity today to be able to talk to you about. Can I use this mic right here? We're grateful to be able to have this opportunity today to talk in detail about what's going on in the first 8 months because, in truth, you guys want to know that your elected officials are accountable to you, that they're transparent. I want to tell you, in just 8 months, we've accomplished a lot. Our team has, and I want to go over some of that today, but I want to reaffirm 3 important principles as I start out today. First, I want to reaffirm to you that I fully recognize that service in Congress is a deep responsibility. It's not a right. You have entrusted me with a very solemn duty. Each time I walk up those steps of the Capitol, and when I go to vote, I take my opportunity to walk up those steps, not to take the tunnel, but to walk up those steps, to look there, and to stand in awe and reverence that you've given me the opportunity to cast that vote for you. Not for anybody else in this world, but for the East Texans. 760,000 individuals in East Texas. And I do that with humility, knowing that I serve you as your fiduciary. That's the first thing I want to reaffirm. And secondly, I want to reaffirm that I'm your voice in Washington, D.C. I know that I am there to uphold the constitutional principles, the precepts of Holy Scripture on which the Constitution was based, and the preferences of East Texas. Nobody else. I don't represent California. Thankfully, I don't represent anybody in Oklahoma. I represent East Texas. I represent the values of East Texas, and I'm proud to do so. Third, I want to reaffirm to you that I am committed to remaining connected to you and accountable. That's why I'm here today. That's why we want to do this face to face. That's why my office was the first freshman office in Texas to stand up its district offices to serve constituents. That's why we send out a weekly newsletter every week to tell you where we're at, what we're doing, what we're up to, what bills we've introduced, what speeches we made, so that you know exactly what we're doing and exactly what we're up to, so you can hold us accountable and so we can be transparent. That's why we hold monthly teletown halls. So when we're in DC, you can call in and ask questions, and we can answer those questions that you have, those tough questions. We're proud to be able to do that. That's why when we're not in Washington, D.C., and I'm here working for you, I can tell you, I'm burning the midnight oil at both ends, and I'm burning up the rubber on the roads of East Texas to get face-to-face with individuals and businesses across East Texas so that indeed we can have these tough face-to-face conversations. But East Texans are smart, they're savvy, they want to know, did the person I elected to office, did they actually follow through with the promises that were made? I can tell you almost 2 years ago when I traveled across East Texas, introducing myself to you, I promised that I would represent you with our shared values of faith, family, and freedom in Washington, D.C. I said, we don't need Washington, D.C. to come to East Texas. We need East Texas to go to Washington, D.C. You guys remember those words, and I know you're holding me accountable for that. I also promised that I would be a fighter. Just like sitting around that dinner table with my four brothers, my three brothers, the four of us, going after those scraps, and as the youngest of four, you had to fight hard to get to those scraps. Last night I was deboning some chicken, and I remember my mom making chicken as a young person, and one whole chicken doesn't go a long way with four boys in the family, and you had to fight hard for those scraps. And I was proud to do so. It taught me some great lessons that I use now in Washington, D.C. So what about accountability and transparency? Where do we stand on the promises made and the promises kept? The thing that you talked to me about most when I traveled across East Texas was border security. You wanted more border security. And I promised to work on that. My first bill in Congress, just a few weeks into Congress, was the Border Security Investment Act, which worked to take away incentives for illegal immigration and to provide additional funding for border security. That was my first bill. Second, just a few months later, I introduced the Visa Overstays Penalty Act, which ultimately was included in the Border Security and Enforcement Act of 2023, which was passed by the House and regarded by many to be the toughest border security bill passed by Congress in decades. I also promised that I would push back against government spending, out of control spending. You know it and I know it. We both have seen it over the past couple of years. Just a few months ago, I filed with the assistance and the cooperation and the work and the joint effort of Americans for Prosperity. I filed a bill to propose a balanced budget amendment, a principles-based balanced budget amendment of our Constitution to say, balance the budget, and to do so on an annual basis. And that makes sense to us. We do it in our homes, we do it in our businesses. Why can't the federal government do it? It makes common sense. I also promised I would work to ensure election integrity. And I have. In July, one of my bills was included as part of the larger American Confidence in Elections Act, for which I was a handful of original co-sponsors. That bill preserves the ideals of federalism. It protects the constitutional right of our state legislature to determine the time, place, and manner of elections. But it also works to ensure that federal elections are more secure and the results are more accurate. We're simply trying to help those guys at the state level, like our guys here today, that have done a great job working with election integrity here in the state of Texas. We want to see that happen in other states across the nation. Energy independence was something else that we talked about. We need energy independence, and I promised that I would help the oil and gas industry. And I reached across the aisle and filed a bill with Henry Cuellar. It was a bill called More Energy, More Jobs Act of 2023. It was to expand offshore drilling opportunities and to give governors in states along the coast more say in what leases could occur offshore. To open up more drilling offshore. We need that. We need more energy independence in the United States. And then broadband. You guys all know rural broadband has been an issue. It continues to be an issue. It's something that's not just unique to East Texas, but rural America across the United States. And so I partnered with Congressman Buddy Carter of the 1st District of Georgia to co-lead the American Broadband Deployment Act to remove permitting barriers that would streamline the process to upgrade wireless towers and help fill those gaps in rural broadband across America. Those are practical, important solutions that we put in place to meet the promises in just 8 months of work, to meet the promises we made to you on the campaign trail. I also promised that I would support law enforcement, and I have. Working again across the aisle with Deborah Ross from North Carolina, I filed the Strong Communities Act 2023, which incentivizes members of the local community to stay in their local community and work for law enforcement agencies here, not to go somewhere else, but to provide grant monies and assistance to local entities so they can train and educate those individuals and keep them here in East Texas so they don't go somewhere else. Help fill those gaps that we see in law enforcement across East Texas. And then I promised to continue to listen to the citizens of East Texas, to respond to the growing needs as they came about. And one of the things we continued to hear about was that gap in radar service between Fort Worth and Shreveport. You guys know it, the radars are horrible here in East Texas, not because of something we've done, but because there's this huge gap. We can't see those lower level systems as they move through, those F1 and F2 systems, and the flash flooding that occurs here that destroys homes and properties, put lives at risk. We filed a bill that said, you know what, we want to fill those gaps in, we want to make people more safe, we want to get them more information more quickly and with more accuracy. Those are the practical ways that we've been trying to build on the promises that we have made. We're grateful that you've given us that opportunity, but there is much more to do. This is just the beginning. As I was dropping my kids off for school, my two younger ones, my seniors wouldn't let me drop them off for school. But as I was dropping my little first grader and my second grader, Lincoln and Juliet, off for school yesterday, first day of school, White House ISD, as we dropped them off, I was reminded of 4 simple principles that I learned in elementary school that if you apply in Congress, as I have applied them in Congress, I've found open up additional opportunities. And what are they? They're simple. Show up early. Be prepared. Work hard. Treat other people right. They're not hard character principles. They are principles we know when we show up at the first day of elementary school. We need to instill those principles continually in our government. We need to take them, and as we combine them with the goals of defending the Constitution and supporting the ideals of faith, family, and freedom, we can't be stopped because the formulas are simple and they're finite. It is a deep honor to serve you as Congressman. We talk often about, in our staff meetings and in our office, we talk about service and humility. That's kind of our informal motto. But despite all of the work that's already been done, there's a whole lot more to do. This is not a sprint, this is a race of endurance. So that's why I'm announcing today that I'm running for re-election to represent each one of you and all of the 767,000 people in the 1st District of Texas in the United States Congress. I'm going to end with this, and I'm going to reaffirm this several other times. In my first speech in Congress, I said words very close to this, and I want to reaffirm this to you today. The 1st District of Texas is the best district to represent the United States. The people are faith-based, they're tough-minded, they're hardworking, and they're independent. And they need a representative in Congress to act with the same toughness and the same determination and the same principles that they instill in their daily lives. Someone who will work as hard as you do, someone who loves East Texas as much as you do. I hope that you each will see fit to send me back to Congress to represent you for 2 more years, that you will see that I am that person to represent East Texas in Washington, D.C., to fight again for you with courage, with steadiness, with humility, and with strength. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for the ability to serve each one of you. It is an honor to serve you. I look forward to 2 more years in the United States Congress.